Okay, hello everyone. Here's Eternally Surprised. Today with a fancy guest from the Ninjas Discord, Klarostorix, who, as you might know, wrote the primer on the deck. And what we're going to do today is that we are going through a recent 5.0 league that I had. On screen you can see the deck list that I was playing. I think it's basically pretty stock. At that point, I tried out only playing free Changing Outcast. Yeah, basically more for testing purposes. And as you can see, the decklist has 61 cards. On the MTCPL disc, we kind of have the meme that Cling to Dust is the best 61st card. So I didn't want to let go of that and keep that in play. It's a good answer to Uro. Worst case, it cycles. It's good against Burn, if that ever comes up. And yeah, I think apart from that, like the main deck is pretty stuck. There's one Narset in the main deck, mostly for control matchups. And also the sideboard is pretty stuck, nothing too exciting here. Massacre for Death and Taxes after I haven't seen any Death and Taxes after playing a few leagues is probably something you can definitely cut. Second, Brazen Borrow is also not like necessary but optional, and yeah, that's basically the list that I played. And yeah, hello Klarostorix.
Hello guys, hello every ninja aficionado. Glad to be here and be part of this 5.0 recap. A few comments from my side on this list. I personally play second Flusterstorm in the sideboard at the moment, and also I do like Torpor Orb in the sideboard, which I would recommend in the place of Massacre for future leagues, but of course this is a subjective choice that everybody can make its own, and yeah, that's the list that was played in the 5.0 league, and we will see how the matchups that we played turn out. And I think we are ready to jump into the first match.
Yeah, we are. Just one note on side. I'm also only playing 3 Prismatic Vistas and replaced the 4th Vista with a Verdant Catacombs. Basically to have more options to fetch for Underground Sea. Yeah, that's just another thing that I'm testing right now, how that works out. Okay, then we can jump into the first match of the league. As I said, like at that point, I haven't played MTGO for quite a long time. So I was a bit rusty with the interface. I think I nearly timed out in some of the matches because
which
of that.
Which is not a hard thing to do, by the way, especially if you have a lot of foundries in play.
Yeah, definitely. And I recently played against lands, and having to pay for all the tabernacle triggers really made it hard to stay there and not just lose.
Just one of the reasons to dislike lands. Okay.
Okay. As you can see, I lost the die roll. I was on the draw. Had no clue what my opponent was on. It was the starting hand, which is pretty decent. It has interaction in the form of Force of Will and Force of Negation, has a payoff with Changing Outcast, and like 2 ninjas, so one of them is basically a replacement ninja if something goes wrong with the first one.
It's a bit light on the enabler side, so if you lose the Changing Outcast early, the hand might turn out to be pretty slow, but in most cases, people just wait for the ninjas to hit the board and use the removal on the ninjas, which is not always the right choice, but we will see how it turns out. Yeah.
Yep. My opponent keeps on 7 as well. Start on Volcanic Island, so basically that doesn't tell much. As a start, they didn't play anything on turn 1, so it makes it maybe a bit less likely they are actually Delver, and a bit more likely there is something like, I don't know, Sneak and Show. For example,
One thing to keep in mind in this spot is not playing into Stifle, so keeping the fetch is the right choice here.
Yeah. Exactly. Also, I want to play the Changing Outcast. They might be Delver, just have, I don't know, keep up a Brainstorm for end of turn or something like that. Have a Wasteland in play, and then if a fetch for Underground Sea, that's pretty bad, and that's we have no cantrips and no way to find another land at that point. Yeah, plan is pretty easy. Just deploy the Changing Outcast. Our opponent continues on Volcanic Island Bayou, so that's pretty obvious what that is. We're against Tess, and they start off on a Wishclaw Talisman. At that point, I feel like I have 2 counter spells. I have a ninja to draw more cards. I'm pretty sure they have no way of like interacting with our creatures in the first match, in the first game of the match. So I don't know. I feel like countering Wishclaw here with Force of Negation is something that I want to do. It helps stopping Mox Opal from becoming live, and yeah, just for them intervenes with their like maybe turn 3 kill.
Yeah, I like getting rid of the toolbox card here.
Yeah,
you do counter it, right?
Yeah, I countered with Force of Negation and pitched the Venus Infiltrator here. The reason I did that over Yuriko in that case is that potentially Yuriko is a faster kill. Ironically, the same thing can be argued in the other way as well. Also, Ingenious Infiltrator helps concealing what you actually draw. But yeah, that's the decision I made at that point.
Yeah, I have had a bunch of matches where my opponent or the cards I drew additional to the cards I drew for turn, and my opponent saw me bricking really hard on these extra draws, and he played a risky line, and he had so much information on my hand that he was basically sure that I didn't have a counterspell, even though I had like 8 cards in hand. So this is something that can go wrong, but keeping Yuriko is usually the fine choice here.
Yeah, also
I'm also not sure if pitching Narset is a consideration here. Because if the opponent tries to go off, Narset doesn't really do a whole lot. If the opponent does not go the Echo of Eons line, and you can shut down cantrips, but if the opponent has a Burning Wish line, Narset will probably not do all that much. So pitching Narset is an option here, but because you have redundancy in your ninja payoffs, it's better in this case to keep it in hand and have more options on future turns.
Yeah, I think that's also one of the reasons for not pitching Narset in that spot, because Narset is good at finding the right answer at the right time.
Yes, that's
-2,
well.
and if they don't have it, I mean, they play the Wishclaw Talisman, which maybe says, I mean, it's saving them mana. It can also get them Whale of Summer, which would be really annoying, and basically just blank our Force of Will, or the forces that are left there. And yeah, at that point, Narset maybe can help slowing them down with against their cantrips and find the right piece of like the right answer at that time. Okay, the next draw is Brainstorm. I mean, I'm just fetching Underground Sea. There's no need to play around something like Wasteland. And the Brainstorm, it's another card that can be pitched, but at that point, I think I'd rather pitch Narset still. I lead off on a cantrip, so we're still digging probably. Go for another Wishclaw, and basically the same reason as last time. Force it and not give them like the perfect card at the perfect time.
Yeah. So we have a stop in this spot. So there are actually a few things you can you can do in this spot, you can brainstorm before combat and try to find blue source. No, actually you don't have enough mana and no other enabler. So it's probably the better line to just go to combat and then look one card deeper with brainstorm after drawing the Yuriko card.
Yeah, that's actually
Depending on what you see with Yuriko. If you find a blue source, you might just put Narset on the battlefield and shut down a bunch of cards from opponent.
Yeah, I think generally the brainstorming response to Yuriko trigger is something you'd only do if you're really going for lethal and you're pretty sure you have it. Otherwise, usually just digging one card deeper is the better option.
Especially against combo decks. One card deeper may be the difference between finding another interaction spell and not finding it.
Yeah, at that point we only get Yuriko, which does nothing in that spot because we already have one, and we don't find the second blue source set. So, oops, that I guess was a misclick. Just pass in that spot and keep the brainstorm as an instant. Basically, there's not really anything that I need to play in that spot. And if they don't go off that turn, we're gonna draw 3 cards per turn, which is pretty good. They just pass and do nothing. I don't know what that was actually.
I think you floated mana and passed phase without using your brain first.
Yeah, I have no clue what happened there. Well, I just did nothing. I mean, it didn't even attack. Maybe it was just I'm not used to. I'm just not used to Magic Online anymore, and I don't know. Clicked the wrong.
But it seems like the opponent doesn't have any more thing to do either. So game one for us.
It's kind of a weird spot to concede, I think. And to be honest, I'm not sure what happened there actually.
Interesting is that the opponent also tapped his Volcanic Island, didn't cast anything, and passed phase as well. So I'm not sure. Maybe this is some kind of Magic Online bug.
Yeah.
In a replay where lands get tapped in a random way. I have no clue.
Yeah, to be honest, I also don't know what happened there. Anyway, let's just go to game 2. I mean, at least the result is right, and I did win that one. So now we're...
No, why did you spoil it, man?
And yeah, anyway, for those of you who can read, it's easy. Let's take a look at the sideboard here. So the cards that I took out are the Fatal Pushes and Murderous Cut. They don't really do much, and if they go for a lot of goblins, as you can see, there's no Plague Engineers, I brought in the Plague Engineers just in case they just go for empty the warrens. Yeah, I also removed one of the Baleful Strixes. There's not that much you can block, and yeah, it does pitch to force and cantrip at least, but yeah, there's not that much utility to it. And 3 of the Retrofitter Foundries, because against combo decks, usually the better plan is to focus on ninjas and card draw and card advantage and always having the right answer at the right time.
Yeah, and if I remember the sideboard correctly, you brought in Surgicals, 2 Sword Seizes, 1 Flusterstorm, and what else?
We can just have a look.
You brought in the Engineered Explosive as well.
Yeah, 2 Plague Engineers, Engineered Explosive, and if they go for some artifacts and just play them, explosives can be good, or just maybe...
I mean, he gets rid of Goblin tokens and Mox Opal and Chromox as well, so it's basically a more versatile Plague Engineer for 2 mana.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like this.
And yep. Let's see how it goes. Opponent just goes polluted delta pass. The hand I kept here is a bit on the risky side, to say the least, I guess. We have an enabler, no payoff for Force of Will and a blue card, and the explosives. The explosives can do something, but they don't need to. Another reason for engineered explosives was if they go cast like a defense grid, for example. And explosives on 2 can blow up with Claw talismans, which they can't activate on our turn, and also the defense grids. But the downside is that you basically need 4 mana to do so.
Yeah, and 4 mana is a lot in this matchup.
Yeah, definitely. So the draw for turn is Baleful Strix. There's not much to do. Just go for the outcast, keep the...
Baleful Strix is actually a decent draw here, because then you don't have to pitch your Brainstorm, which you really don't want to do.
Yeah, and I want to keep the Brainstorm. Like right now, I do have one answer to what they are doing, and can't really have more after the Brainstorm. I can't really expect that. And yeah, without the Baleful Strix cast, I also would not cast the Brainstorm in that spot, because it's the only blue card we have, and we might fizzle on blue cards and then have like a 5 mana counter spell in our hand that does nothing.
Yeah, and you just want to clock early, so dropping the outcast and getting the shoots down to 1 counter spell is
what I find
perfectly defensible.
Yeah, what I find interesting here is that they only fetched and on turn 1 didn't do anything, so Brainstorm was probably the draw for the turn. And yeah, they Brainstorm main phase, maybe in hopes of finding something else. And yeah, but seems like they didn't, like at least didn't find like a missing piece for the combo.
Yeah, it's interesting. They kept 7 and don't have any relevant proactive game plan on turn 2. This is kind of a rare occurrence for Storm decks.
Yeah, so I did feel kind of lucky at that point. The draw for turn is another changing outcast. Again, in that spot, they don't really do much. It's just vanilla 1/1s that can't block goblin tokens. And yeah, did not really help all that much. Did fetch for the Underground Sea Brainstorm main phase. I mean, the draw here is also really good. Force of Will and Yuriko. Basically, that just forms a very solid game plan. Having double force backup, just in case something goes really wrong. And also like two outcasts plus the ninja to draw 2 more cards on the next turn.
Yeah, that's a very solid spot to be in.
I mean, if Whale of Summer, it can still not be enough. But you never know. Just attack for 1. They fetch with Tropical, so this probably says they have Whale of Summer in that spot, so that's also an incentive for me in this position to just let the Wish Claw resolve and not just pitch 2 cards into the potential Whale of Summer. My turn, drawing a Prismatic Vista is also not too bad. Depending, like right now, it looks like they are definitely keeping a slow hand. They made all the land drops, only played a Wish Claw and 1 Brainstorm in 3 turns, which is very unusual for a deck that wants to cast as many cards as possible. So probably what they have in hand is just all fast mana. And yeah, on this turn, I mean, it's an easy plan. I can deal with misclick and I took the outcasts Ninjutsu Yuriko in. Oh, apparently I did forget about that. As I said, it was the first game, the first game of Magic Online in a really, really long time, and yeah, so that was not very good. On the other hand, again, they just make the land drop and pass.
It seems like they are still looking for one certain piece, and they don't seem to find it.
Yeah, or just feel like another thing is like we don't have any pressure right now. We have two 1/1s that deal like 1 or 2 damage per turn. And so they can just try and wait a bit and find like the perfect hand that wins for something like double force. I mean, also the only thing that we did from their perspective is play 2 changeling outcasts and keep 7. So they
and play Brainstorm, but we didn't
yeah,
show any payoffs so far.
yeah. So
And
exactly at that point, it's probably likely that they are just waiting until like we get a ninja and then try to go off after that, because it's getting more and more difficult for them. Here, as we said earlier, we do have 4 mana for engineered explosives on 2. They can't activate Wishclaw Talisman on our turn.
so we just blow it up.
Yep. We can attack first. Doesn't cost anything. And yeah, blow up the talisman in that spot. It's like the only piece of artifact removal we have anyway. They fetch, so maybe they're just definitely not looking for lands and just pass again on 6 cards. Again, another really perfect draw. Like 3 forces, 2 other blue cards, and one of them is a ninja.
I really want to see your Kevin board here.
And yeah.
Oh yeah.
Finally, I did manage.
You finally figured out the interface.
Yeah, to put Rico into play. And yeah, the good draws keep coming. Like Ponder is another solid draw. It's another 4 damage, so they have to be afraid of lethal next turn in that spot.
I'm kind of curious why you don't play the Ponder here. You have double force anyway.
Yeah.
And if you find the Flusterstorm with the Ponder, the game is basically locked up.
Probably. What they are doing is they just try to cycle Veil of Summer. So I have no idea.
Probably
what
means they have a bunch more of those.
That was another thing that they might have, just more Veil of Summers, and yeah, that's what they start on. And a Dark Ritual holding priority in response to their own Veil of Summer, which is really interesting.
Quite an interesting line.
Let's see if the game log says anything. It says playback finished 1 minute ago.
Maybe the opponent conceded here.
Yeah, just
that's a plausible reason for this spot here.
Still kind of a strange one.
Okay, yeah, but we won 2-0, and maybe the next replays are a bit more fond of our time.
I hope so. Let's go into the second match. This time we're on the play.
We're playing against Lord of the Rings legend Gandalf the Grey here.
Yeah, so we can definitely expect some interesting magic. I did manage to at least get that one right and press yes for being on the play.
I'd be really disappointed if Gandalf the Grey plays white cards, and if he plays Death and Taxes, he definitely should change his name to Gandalf the White.
Yeah, we'll see. Again, here the opening hand is different from the ones we had last time, because like this is a Foundry hand with Fatal Push especially. It's like, okay, I hope I'm playing against a fair deck.
Yeah. And if you play against Devil with this hand, you're pretty happy about this, because pretty much all your cards in your hand are relevant in that matchup.
Yeah. Basically, and also like if they play against a fair deck, turn 1 playing around Stifle is something. The game plan here for the first turn is easy. For me, I played with Changing Outcast and the Ornithopter in hopes maybe drawing a ninja at that point. But yeah, let's do it. They start on Bayou Thoughtseize, and Thoughtseize with Brainstorm, really interesting. It usually says, okay, this is not a fair deck. If they don't care about Fatal Push and Red of Foundry. So
yeah, this smells like it is probably a spell-based deck and not a deck that plays to the board all that much.
Yeah. I mean here, you play just use a blue for the foundry, you have 2 black cards. If they play some kind of graveyard combo, it needs Cling to Dust to some kind of interaction. Next turn we start hitting for 5. Yeah, that is the obvious reason why they did not take the foundry. They're on blue-green depths, black-green depths, and have Abrupt Decay in hand.
I really want to see blue-green depths at some point.
Maybe one day we will.
Maybe depths is just a side plan next to playing Uro.
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
yeah, losing the foundry is really bad here.
Yeah.
Because that's a card that can stall large for like 10 turns straight if you have a bunch of mana open. And losing it is pretty bad, but you still have the 1 board Brazen Borrower, if I'm correct.
Yep.
So
and Ornithopters.
you're in a fine in a okay spot. It's perfect, but you do have a clock, and you have a redraw. You have a fatal push for Elvish Reclaimer if the opponent wants to assemble his combo. So nothing is lost here, and let's see how it goes on here.
Yeah, also them playing Abrupt Decay in the main board probably means they're not on like the turbo version and some kind of, I don't know, slower or medium speed version of depths.
Yeah, I'm not a depth expert, so I will trust you on this. Also, the dust is really good here because you can go to above 20 life and actually take 1 hit of the Marlage, which is really, really solid.
Yeah, the draw here is very good. Like we get another payoff with Yuriko. From the Ornithopter and can just replay that one.
Yeah, but you do want to attack with the construct too, right?
Yeah, I do. Okay. no grave misclicks this time. Hit them for 5, flip Force of Will for another 5. Now we're in the spot. I don't see them winning at that point. Like if they have a Hexmate, they make a 20/20. They attack once. We have the Ornithopter. We can.
We also have to Cling to Dust.
Yeah, we can Cling to Dust the Hex or the dead Ornithopter for another 3 life, and they're definitely on the swing back. And Fatal Push if they just might have another creature. So yeah, they do have the combo. I mean, that stops us from attacking for 1 turn.
Isn't it actually... No, you... Thinking about this situation here, there's actually an option to attack with all the creatures. The opponent makes a 20/20, and if he blocks the Ornithopter, you can maybe get him that with Yuriko and Infiltrator.
Yeah, I
and
mean,
also if you draw another land, you still can take the 1 hit and go above 20 life. It's a risky line, but there's an option to attack through the Marlage and still get the opponent to 0 here. But taking it safe here is probably the better choice because you're not in a hurry to push anything.
Yeah, like in this spot, I'm not sure how they can actually win. Maybe they do have another Abrupt Decay, that would be bad. But still, when we block once with Ornithopter, we can go above 20 lives. So we can take 1 or 2 hits from Marlage and should be able to just kill them in time.
The opponent will not feel good about attacking either because he knows he can't kill us as we have the Ornithopter on the board.
Okay, and the opponent just concedes in the spot.
But he did not see the Cling to Dust. We drew it after he played the Thoughtseize, right?
Yep.
Okay, but Ornithopter is still too strong in this spot.
Yeah,
like it's a staple Ornithopter.
The one and only nemesis of Marlage. So let's go to game number 2. This time on the draw. And see, like, this looks like a perfect hand against or like not the perfect, but like a really good hand against depths. Brazen Borrower deals with Marlage, Ornithopters block it, just in case we do have Force of Will.
But we really do not want to pitch the Brazen Borrower.
Yeah, it's like the
So
emergency
we would
exit.
really like to draw a blue card on the first turn here, or
second turn as well. Like,
maybe the second turn. But the sooner the better.
yeah, and hope they don't have something like a Thoughtseize.
Which they always have.
Yep.
Oh,
they
yeah.
they always have it,
I
and
got
Brazen
it.
Borrower is gone. And now the hand looks like a lot worse. We have 2 Ornithopters that don't progress our game plan. Yeah, I only play out 1 in case we just go for the Abrupt Decay. They have Fatal Push in the sideboard, so that deals with the Ornithopter. Now we have that. Now it does.
Now this
punished.
is the draw that makes you regret not playing the second Ornithopter on turn 1.
And they have the combo on turn 3. Without playing any relevant spells, basically. Flusterstorm doesn't do anything anymore. Ornithopter is just a blocker. They make Marit-Lage. And yeah, it looks pretty desperate. Like the one chance is drawing the second Brazen Borrow and then not having... Oh yeah, we can counter the crop rotation, but yeah, Force of Will doesn't do anything. And we're just dead. Short one.
That's how it goes sometimes against depth, where you keep a hand and the opponent rips it apart, and
yeah, I mean, one of the drawbacks
just tears your head off.
Yeah, one of the drawbacks was like the hand didn't have any kind of pressure. But it can also be a game plan that you want to follow. Just stall them enough so you can take over the game, and just really good at doing exactly that. Just trading cards in the beginning and then getting ninjas into play and drawing more cards.
Yeah, and you exactly saw why depth sometimes is a really rough matchup for ninjas, because you can stall them long enough, but ninjas doesn't really have a fast clock, so disruption alone doing it. And without foundries, you can stall for 1, maybe 2 turns, and you have exactly 2 removal spells from Marit-Lage itself. So if the opponent gets around the couple of high impact cards that we have in our deck, then it's a pretty easy game for him.
Yep, so let's see how the next one goes. This time on the play. Yeah, this looks like a decent keep. 2 foundries is good. Foundry plus Ornithopter is a blocker that then turns into a threat. Changing Outcast, you can also for 1 mana turn it into a Thopter. Thopter with a second foundry for the second mana. You could also like sack the 1/1 Thopter that you made with the first foundry and turn that into another construct. And yeah.
The one card you don't want to face with this hand is Pithing Needle.
Okay, so someone plays. They usually play 1 Wasteland or something like that. Often we have 1 Wasteland in the main board. So that's just incentive for fetching for the basic. Yeah, they have a Fatal Push.
Yeah.
We turn into 4/4. Nothing we can really do about it.
The Fatal Push isn't really great here, but it gets rid of a flying blocker.
And they only need to hit us once. Which definitely helps them, and yeah, it's basically what they are afraid of most, probably. And they can definitely raise us and raise the 4/4 construct.
Yeah, they can potentially have a 2020 next turn already. So this Brainstorm, obviously Force of Will is great if your opponent wants to use one of the Hex Mages in his deck. Force of Negation isn't really a good card here, but it's a blue card to pitch. I think putting back 1 land and maybe the second Foundry is okay here, and then drawing the second Foundry in the next turn without fetching in between.
Yeah. What helps us here is that they have Orbog in play, so Land actually taps for black to cast the Changing Outcast.
Yeah, that's a good point. We don't need to fetch to have a black source.
Yep. Or we can just play the Red Catacomb, tap that for black. That would also work. But then we have a wastelandable land, and Island is basically just a basic NOC in the spot. Okay, so I did put back Verdant Catacombs and the Ninja, because right now I'm not in a spot where I actually can ninjutsu that turn. And so next, at that point, yeah, just play the 4/4.
Play the changeling,
Playing the
probably.
changeling. Next turn we draw the Ninja, we ninjutsu the Outcast, and get another one, another draw, which is the fetch land, which then has the next mana.
Yeah, so there we saw why keeping Force is correct. Even if Force of Negation itself is a bad card in this hand, but it's useful as a pitch card.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, it does counter crop rotation, which is also important if they choose to crop rotate on their own turn, which, however, is actually unlikely if you know that you're playing against a deck with Force of Negation, or that probably has Force of Negation. Okay, so yeah. Draw the Ninja, attack, hit for 1, hit them for 6 in that spot, they go down to 10. Draw the fetch land, play the fetch land, and I'm actually going for the Foundry here. One of the reasons is they can rest the second Foundry, they cannot rest the Changing Outcast, and 2 Foundries together are just 3 mana, make a 1/1 flyer that they can't, that can always block Marit Lage.
Yeah, and 3 mana Wake Make blocker is really hard to beat if they don't have a Pithy Needle.
Yep. I mean, we
by,
saw the Abrupt
by
Decays.
really hard to beat, I mean it's pretty much impossible to beat.
What Depths plays is they do have Force of Vigor in the sideboard, and also often Collector Oof and more Abrupt Decay, so they do have outs at that spot if they have the combo again. But yeah, that's also something that they have to have in order to do anything. But they just play up, they do have it. They have the stage and just pass. Yeah, in this spot, Changing Outcast is quite a good creature because it's unblockable and attack through Marit Lage. One thing from the depth side is always, basically Marit Lage is a creature that has no way of staying back. It always has to attack. If you don't attack with Marit Lage, you're already losing. So they have to attack. We have 3 mana to make another blocker, and hope they don't have another Fatal Push or Abrupt Decay in that spot. And then probably do enough on the swing back. Another option, if they attack, is to pay 1 mana, the Outcast, make a Thopter, block Marit Lage, turn the Thopter into 4/4, and then you have 10 damage on the board, which is exactly lethal.
Yes, save lethal damage on the backswing.
And they do have Collective. So in this spot, I'm definitely into just turning on a 1/1 flyer and blocking with that. But
yeah, having Infiltrator over Yuriko is relevant here, even without drawing the Brazen Borrower, because Infiltrator can attack through the Collector Oof, and Yuriko does not.
Yep. Well, the 2 power are often quite important in many matchups.
Also, the converted mana cost of 4 is really solid to dodge Abrupt Decay.
Yep.
Which Yuriko does not.
So yeah, we just attack, we guarantee to draw at least 1 card if they block the Infiltrator, maybe 2 if they just to block that, or block nothing. They do not block anything because then it's just basically very dead. And yeah, in this spot, it's Flusterstorm is also the perfect second card in that place. Like, we can Brazen Borrower, Marit Lage, and then need double Not of This World to stop that from working.
You do this on your own turn, right? You do not want to let your opponent untap.
Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to do that. They can have Spirit Guides and then pay for it maybe on a Storm Comfort of 2. Also, yeah, Flusterstorm for 2 doesn't. Yeah, for it would be 3 then. They could pay for it with a Spirit Guide, so just do that on my own turn. And they don't have anything. So they take another draw step, have another depths. Yeah. Crop Rotate, they do have the combo again, but Flusterstorm deals with that, and pretty sure, I know, they would have had the out of just having 2 blockers surviving that turn, and then hitting on swing back by Flusterstorm.
You do have the Brazen Borrower to block 1 turn again.
Oh yeah, that's also something, yeah. That's
yeah,
it
that
for
was
game 2.
quite a bad fought, but it worked out in the end.
Yep.
Even without the foundries themselves.
Yep. Okay, now going into the third match. Yeah, on the one before, like depths, yeah, is always tight, and a lot of people say that Ninjas is definitely favored against depths, and it's a very tough matchup. But yeah, it really depends on the draws, and Ninjas does have tools, but not all of them. It's not like Death and Taxes. Okay.
Yes, but even Death and Taxes can lose a match here and there against depths.
Yep, definitely. Okay, so third match. Again on the draw. I have no idea what our opponent is playing. They keep 7. We keep 7. Yeah.
That's one of the slower hands for sure. But having Curve of Foundry into Strix or maybe Drawn, depending on the matchup, and maybe milking a bit of value out of the Foundry before committing the other cards is a solid plan. But with this hand, we are for sure looking to play against a fair, slow creature matchup or control matchup.
Yep. That's also something that I've found out that personally for me, I am definitely a player who usually tries to... I'm really fond of playing slow games with ninjas as well, not just go like turn to ninja every time.
No, I do agree with this. Getting the turn 2 ninja is great in some matchups, but against interactive matchups, you sometimes really don't want to throw your ninja into the first removal spell that your opponent has, and you just rather wait 1 or 2 more turns and go for the double ninjutsu play to dodge a removal spell, or just give your opponents a few other cards to deal with first. I do agree with this sentiment.
Yeah, one thing to note here is that maybe if you play against Delver, the Misty is a bit of a liability because we have to fetch for Underground Sea to get the Black Source. But at least in that spot, if they have a Wasteland or something like that, the Strix draws another card, we are on the draw, so at that point we've drawn 3 other cards to maybe find a third land and another black one. Okay.
And having 3 lands is a sweet spot for this deck.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one of the good things about ninjas. You can very well operate on just 2 mana, but if you have 6 in play, you're also happy because Foundry is just such a good mana sink.
Yes. If you have 1 or 2 Founders out, you have no problem getting up to 5 or 6 lands in a game.
Yeah. So in this spot, our opponent starts on Horizon Canopy Noble Hierarch, which basically has 2 options. It can be some Maverick build that just has a Horizon Canopy as the one land, like maybe the one green source they have, or the other possibility is humans.
The first suspicion would usually be Maverick, because Humans and Legacy is not exactly an established deck. It's playable, of course, but it's not a deck that you see all that much.
Yeah.
Maverick, on the other hand, is a lot more common.
Yeah. In that spot, drawing Murderous Cut is another okay draw. Like looking at our hand, it's gonna take some time for it to be alive, and a good card that actually does anything. But yeah, at least it's a card that does definitely something, and we're going the slow way anyway, so hopefully we will have time.
Yes, so depending on the draw that we have on our next turn, I would play the Baleful Strix in probably most cases.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
I'd be very happy to draw another land and not having to fetch the underground sea, because humans does run wasteland and Maverick does too.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you want to avoid getting your mana wasted out of the game.
yeah, for sure. So they are on humans. They play Thalia's Lieutenant. One thing here is that Drown Lock is not the best card. Like, we have the Fatal Pushes and the two kind of slow removals in Drown the Lock and Murderous Cut, and here it's kind of punished to maybe not have Murderous Cut be something like another Fatal Push or Dismember or something like that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand,
This is
Baleful Strix is a good
the,
card.
this is the this is a prime example that I would show to anyone who prefers Murderous Cut and Drowning Loch. I'm not really a big fan of those cards, because in spots like this exactly, they are pretty mediocre and really clunky to play. But they do have their upsides as well. But I usually do not play Murderous Cut in my list as well. I do play One Drown, uh, which is a recent addition. I didn't play it for a long time, but it's a versatile card, and in the slower matchups, it's useful sooner or later anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And also, like, in this spot, it would be really good to be able to just Fatal Push Thalia's Lieutenant before it gets out of hand. And what they do is they just attack with a Noble for 2. And here we go. I mean, also it being
It's
a
a
fetch land, Prismatic Vista being a fetch land is really good because of Murderous Cut. So it helps getting there. That point they don't really have that much pressure, and next turn at least Murderous Cut is live, even if it's like a 3 mana classic murder in that
Yeah,
spot.
and you really need to be careful about bouncing Baleful Strix back to your hand, because uh, humans can really have some explosive turns, and um, removing the detach blocker from your own board can really be a tough decision, depending on the opponent's draw.
Yeah, definitely. Like if you have maybe another Thalia's Lieutenant or champion, yeah, it can get out of hand soon. Counter Solon's humans, would have thought. They do have another Thalia's Lieutenant, so now the board starts looking frightening. Unfortunately, or fortunately enough for us, apparently they don't have anything else to play because they even attack with a Noble Hierarch. And I think in that spot, I'm happy to trade the Strix for one of the Thalia's Lieutenants.
Even if it makes your ninjas a lot slower than they are without an enabler, but you're playing the control role here anyway.
Yeah,
So you just want to keep the board clear as much as possible, and then maybe make some constructs or get the Infiltrator or Yuriko down on some of the later turns. But they are unlikely to connect without an Ablay anyway.
yeah. Another thing is that blocking the Thalia's Lieutenant helps at least starting turning on Drownvelock. It gets the first card into their graveyard. And yeah, we're getting one step closer to killing the other Thalia's Lieutenant or something that's coming after that. Another thing that here against humans specifically is an upside of Murderous Cut and Drownvelock is that they also play Meddling Mage and usually just name Fatal Push. And having an alternative way to kill a Meddling Mage can often be a good thing. Just pass. We draw another land, which is really good. And can cast Murderous Cut for 2 because of the fetch land and the Dead Strix. And kill the Everthalia's Lieutenant. Now they're just left with one Noble Hierarch in play. And yeah, 3 cards they didn't play before, so not quite sure what they're having there in the spot. They do have the Wasteland now. Cycle the Horizon Canopy, and now Drown the Lock is definitely live and basically kills everything they have. So also them sacking the Horizon Canopy means they are really digging for like some kind of interactive cards. They attack with a noble for 3. It's a big noble at that point.
If I could wish for a specific top deck in this spot, I think Ornithopter would be pretty high on my list.
Yeah, I thought the same also about last turn. Like, you play the Ornithopter, you just sack it instantly, have another card in the graveyard for Murderous Cut, make it cheaper. And then it would only cost 1, and we could have fetched differently to have both Murderous Cut and Drown the Lock on the last turn.
I'm not even sure if I would sacrifice the Ornithopter instantly, because it makes Yuriko and Infiltrator a lot more efficient and sure to connect. And Narset is also a pretty clunky card that we have in hand, so I'd rather not sacrifice the Ornithopter for efficiency reasons here.
Yeah, right. That's actually true. And yeah, I think Human doesn't really run any removal in the main board.
Like they occasionally run a single Palace Jailer or a Reflector Mage, which isn't really doing all that much against our deck.
Definitely. I mean, Reflector Mage on Ornithopter doesn't really do anything. Palace Jailer is really bad against a deck that's focused on unblockable creatures. Yeah. So...
Also, Foundry is pretty good at keeping the Monarch once you have it.
Yep, definitely. Now they do have the Meddling Mage. Interesting thing is they name Ponder. So maybe they assume we just don't have anything because we didn't put anything, like they didn't commit to the board at that point, and hope we are just digging. Yeah, another Yuriko is like bad draw in this spot. It doesn't really help us.
It can't even be pitched to potential top deck force because your opponent has Cavern, which makes it even worse.
And yeah, in this spot, I'm actually happy just passing. If they attack, I have Drown and Lock for one of the creatures.
And you can make a servo too and put the ninjas on the board.
Yeah, and also one thing is that if I don't commit to the board, it makes them more likely to attack, so I can swing back with a ninja and connect.
Yeah, and 10 life points is not a super great number, but it's still a solid number that's high enough to not be under lethal pressure within the next 1 or 2 turns.
Yeah, and I think at that point we're pretty close to stabilizing the board. They do attack for 4. I drown the Meddling Mage in this spot. Maybe just copying them, like tell them, oh, we do have it. We do have the Ponder in hand and want to use it. And also just prevent some damage. Now we have Caracas, so Yuriko gets even worse than it's ever been.
That's one of the rare spots where you really hate Yuriko.
Yeah. But what you can do is you can just double Ninjutsu Yuriko with that mana, but we don't have any of the payoffs right now. I do have Mother of Runes. Mother of Runes is an okay card against ninjas, but if you go for the Foundry plan and just have colorless constructs, that really takes a lot away from Mom. And I mean, now just playing Mom on that turn, on the last turn, probably says, okay, that was the draw they had because I didn't play it before when they had the chance. And they attacked with a Noble Force, for example, instead of protecting their creatures. And yeah. So
if I had to make a guess, they have 2 more lands in hand.
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
And they did draw another.
Seems like my guess was not correct.
Yeah, it might have been their draw for turn, or probably was the draw for turn.
Okay, yeah, we stopped in the upkeep, yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
And they are still trying to prevent us from digging for anything.
I mean, it's not like Ninjas plays any board wipes.
Yeah. In this spot, they, for some reason, don't attack with the Noble.
Which is a mistake.
Yeah, I have no idea why they wouldn't. I mean, what they might be thinking is that if we attack with a ninja, they give protection to the meddling mage with Mother of Runes, and we have a removal spell, then it's bad for them. And Noble definitely blocks the ninja without protection. But yeah, that's like the one reason I can think of. So let's just make another servo and start flooding the board and thinning out because we're drawing too many lands anyway. In this spot, Narset can come down. Yuriko is still basically a dead card. And we find a second Foundry, which is also really nice. And also have 2 mana. They immediately Wasteland the Underground Sea, but in this spot, but it was the plan anyway to just transform the servo into a Thopter. And it also really slows them down because they can't attack into a 4/4. And apparently, I don't know, the draws are so bad, they just concede here.
Yeah, you just saw prime example why Mother of Runes is not good against ninjas.
I mean, it's
having colorless creatures is a real upside sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. And also, I mean, Giver of Runes doesn't help that much because Giver of Runes just dies to the removal spells.
Yeah, that's fair. But it does not die to Plague Engineer, so it would be better in some spots.
Yeah, and I mean, Plague Engineer is definitely something that's going to come in from the sideboard in the second game.
Yes.
Okay, let's take a look at the sideboard.
What you brought in the Massacre?
I did bring in Massacre, even if they don't have planes. Sometimes just like 4 mana, give them -2/-2 can be enough. We can usually stall them long enough to get to that point where 4 mana is good, and maybe wipe the board if we don't have like a Thalia's Lieutenant. While on the other hand, it doesn't kill that many of our creatures if you go the construct line. Stuff to bring out is Force of Wills, Days on the draw, Force of Negation. I also, Cling to Dust doesn't really do anything. And I also took out 1 Yuriko because of the Caracas, and also the 1 power actually really matters. Like, it not having 2 power against humans means it's a lot easier to block.
Yeah, and you brought in Plague Engineers, Engineered Explosive, Liliana,
and
Massacre. And that's it?
Let's just see.
Did I miss anything else?
Oh, Back to Basics.
Oh, Back to Basics, yeah.
Yeah.
Back to Basics is a good one.
Yeah, 2 copies of Back to Basics. If we can stop and the second Brazen Borrower. Because Brazen Borrower is just some more cards that play to the board. They are good against something like Champion of the Parish. If it just grows and grows and grows, you can bounce it and turn it back into 1/1. Massacre can clear the board. Liliana is really good against creature matchups in general, and also can just maybe buy back an Ornithopter, create another 4/4, which is often another good play. Engineered Explosive, they have a lot of 2-drops, we don't, which is actually something that's really good about Engineered Explosives in Ninjas. You can't, unfortunately, take it up to 3, but yeah, the only 2-drops we really have is Baleful Strix, and many other decks, like for example, Blue-Red Delver, also Rug Delver with Tarmogoyfs, have a lot of threats in the 2-mana department, and Explosives clears these quite well. And it can also deal with,
also relevant against Talia decks is that you can still play Engineered Explosives with 2 counters for 2 mana. You don't have to pay 3 because just the number of colors that you pay the mana with is relevant. So you pay 1 regular mana and 1 tax mana for Talia in 2 different colors, and you have an EE on 2. So Engineered Explosive is not affected by the tax that Talia provides on non-creature spells.
Yeah.
That's something to keep in mind.
And also Engineered Explosives can blow up Ether Vials. The problem is in that point that Ether Vial costs 1 mana and Retrofitter Foundry also costs 1 mana, and usually Retrofitter Foundry wins these games for us. But yeah, you can still play around it. Like if you have turn 1 Ether Vial and you have the explosives in hand, you can just go explosives on 1 and then blow them up on the second turn. And hope they just kept a hand that really relied on the Ether Vial. I also did leave in 2 copies of Force of Will. They will probably bring in removal spells, and they have 4 caverns, but humans is also often just tapping out on non-cavern mana, so it's still possible to counter some creatures. Okay, so the first hand was a mulligan. What I keep here is, like, my opponent kept 7 when I keep a really, really slow hand. This does nothing, actually.
But you don't really want to go to 5.
Yeah, I don't really want to go to 5. I need some critical mass, and the 3 cantrips definitely help finding anything of relevance. Opponent goes turn 1 Cavern into Noble Hierarch, probably. Yeah. And yeah, Foundry is the top deck that we needed.
Yeah. This league gives the impression that you're pretty good at top decking.
Yeah, I think it has to be in some spots. They don't make a second land drop in this place, just play Thalia. Luckily enough, in this place, it doesn't really hinder us too much. But I'm also happy just playing the Outcast, and they cannot attack into it.
Yeah. And boom, we have the board under control by paying 2 mana in total.
And yeah, also with them missing their land drop, like if I would draw a removal spell, it's definitely going towards the Hierarch. Because Humans is not the deck that really operates on just 1 mana.
Nope.
And for some reason they do attack with Thalia, and which I really like, and they just shame concede. In the spot. Apparently they didn't see that coming.
Better lucky than good, I guess. Yeah, I'm aware that Foundry has really, really a lot of text on it. But it's still funny that some people just really don't get the connection that Changeling Outcast is also a top there that can be converted into 4/4 without any mana investment.
Yeah, definitely.
This happens way more often than one might guess.
Yeah, for sure. But people just have like there's so many interactions with Foundry, to know all of them is probably a hard ask for someone who's not actually playing ninjas, or like has a bunch of friends who play the deck. So yeah, it often comes like as a surprise to many people that something like that actually happens, and probably with them also on just 2 lands, on just the 2 mana and not being able to play anything.
Yeah, maybe the attack was fully intentional and a bit induced by tilting out of from not having any land drops.
Yeah.
It's entirely possible that was the reason for the attack.
Yeah, it's like brainstorming,
but nobody knows.
Labyrinth or something like that. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this time again on the play. So like at that point we have 50-50 between being on the draw and on the play, which is nice. And yep, this is the hand that I keep.
This is the hand that you want to play against control or fair matchup.
Yep.
Like a lot of other hands that we kept more on the slower side and mid-range side than on the aggro or mid-range tempo plan.
Yeah, that's also something. Like I said before, I'm comfortable playing long games with ninjas. Foundry can grind really well, and we still have the ponder to find something of relevance in that place. And yeah, being on the play, the plan is probably just go, swamp in the turn 1 Foundry.
And also reliably hitting the first 2 or 3 land drops is a good starting point as well.
Yeah, if our opponent cannot interact with like deck 2 Foundries is just 3 mana, make a 1/1, then make a 4 for another 1/1. And yeah, that's also something that's not the greatest thing for like many creature matchups. They go Tropical Island Ponder, so they might be a control deck, then there can be Rock Delver,
maybe Omnitel.
might be Omnitel. It doesn't really tell a lot about what deck we're playing against and whether this hand is like good or like against control or also Delver. This can be okay. Murderous Cut again is a card that's quite dead, especially not having fetchlands and only the basics like in hand. But yeah.
So the question is, without having any clear information on what the opponent is playing, do you ponder and try to find a counter spell in the case that your opponent is playing Omnitel? Or do you just make a land drop and milk the Foundry and make a 1/1?
Yeah, I do draw the days in this place. So I'm happy just playing Ponder, then playing the Foundry, hope they days or counter it. Because 2 Foundries is like a lot better than 1. And find really good draws again. Ninja, Force of Will, play the Foundry, they do days it, we days back. And just basically are on 2 Foundries, 2 mana. Next turn they have 1 mana, we have 3 mana to make a 1/1 flyer every turn.
Yeah.
And I'll just way ahead just by that.
The opponent playing Days here strongly indicates that he's playing a Delver deck.
Yeah.
Sometimes I've seen just a few Omnitel decks playing Days themselves.
Yeah, and I don't think they would daze the Foundry. They want to protect their combo. They don't care about Foundries.
Yeah, so this is like 100% Delver, and having 2 Foundries on the board in game 1 is pretty much unbeatable for Delver, I guess.
Yeah. Now they have the Delver, but we're also closer to Murderous Cut because of the days and the Ponder.
Yeah, we don't care about the Delver. We can raise it pretty easily.
You draw the Ninja here, which is okay. We can make a 1/1. And they probably, if the Delver flips, they attack, and we'll see.
And if necessary, we can just pitch the Infiltrate into Force, which is not a bad thing to do either with the Infiltrator here.
And also having
depending on what your opponent does.
Yeah, and also Rug Delver, usually they don't have artifact removal or something to get rid of the Foundries in game 1.
No.
So that's also in this spot playing against, if it's Rug Delver, might also be Bug, but Rug is way more common. If they play Rug Delver, they often rely on Tarmogoyfs or maybe Hooting Mandrills, and Foundry is really good against these on the defensive side. Like you can just jump Tarmogoyf forever.
Yeah, also Murderous Cut is solid against Mandrills.
Yeah, and also
because it kills it straight up.
Yeah, and Mandrills also trade with 4/4 constructs, so that's another way to get rid of them from a defensive standpoint. And usually against Delver, in the long game, it's better for Ninjas because Ninjas has just more ways to generate card advantage and draw more cards and grind into the long game, since the Arcanist is gone and Oko are gone.
Yeah, I've been reading quite a few comments on the Delver versus Ninjas matchups over the last few months, and the Delver players usually, I've seen some Delver players saying that Ninjas is one of their better matchups, which I strongly disagree with.
Me too. I'm like 80%
in my
against Rug and Blue-Red.
Back from the Oko Arcanist Rug Delver time, even against those busted cards, I had about a 50% win rate against those Rug Delver decks. And it is certainly a lot higher now that Oko as a mainboard answer to Foundry and Arcanist is gone.
Yeah, for me right now, I think Blue-Red and Drag Delver both are like second and third best matchup, even including the Oko Dreadful Arcanist era. And yeah, I do feel really favored when I play against it, and I prefer to play against Rug than against Blue-Red because young Pyromancer can be tough to deal with in game one, and True Name Nemesis as well. Here what our opponent does is they brainstorm in response to the Delver trigger, so we really wanted to flip. Which is really good for us. They're probably not going to play a second creature. Maybe they fetch and then go for Hooting Manros. I'm not quite sure if it's enough mana. I don't think so. I think we're one short. But yeah, they definitely want the Delver to flip, which is quite good for the Ninja in this spot. So Delver does flip, revealing another Brainstorm. They go for Wasteland, which is really good for us as well, because it also means they don't have removal.
Yeah, if they don't have any red source, the matchup is even worse from their side.
Yeah.
And we can just make the foundries here, make a bunch of tokens, and put the ninjas on the board if we feel like it's the correct time to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Like also against Drug Delver or against Delver, usually you try to make the ninjas connect at least once, so it's still a better trade for you. Yeah, Vista is also good for Murderous Cut again. I'm not too worried about the Delver in this spot. Just 3 mana make a 1/1 flyer, 3 mana make another 1/1 flyer, block the Delver or kill the Delver is always an option, and then end up with 4/4s. And yep, like you said, the plan is just attack with the servo ninjutsu because they have no way to interact with it at that point. Otherwise, if they had like a red mana open, I would not jam the ninja in the spot and just continue making a 4/4 because a 4/4 will eventually raise the Delver.
Yeah, just make them use their removal and their spells on whatever creatures the foundries are spitting out.
Yeah, and also
and then put an infiltrator on the board once you know the coast is pretty much clear.
Yeah, another Force of Willers and another okay draw for sure. I fetch here in on my turn because I want to play around Stifle. Basically, I can't play Murderous Cut anyway unless they kill the Infiltrator, which I don't hope. Also, they brainstorm and they play the Wasteland, so they're probably not drawing a red source for at least one more turn after this one. But,
yeah.
They have a Tarmogoyf, which is fine.
Which isn't all that big now.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't even trade for construct here.
Yeah, they have another Wasteland.
That's the kind of games where you really learn to appreciate the clean mana base of blue-black ninjas.
Yeah.
So if you had a splash color like white or maybe red, then your mana situation would probably be a lot worse here.
Yeah, we do draw the one of the 2 underground seas here. What's an option here is just play the underground sea, make them wasteland it, so Murderous Cut only costs 1, and pay with the underground sea mana for it.
Which I'm not a fan of, because if you play the basic swamp and then the underground sea afterwards, there's at least an opportunity to hardcast your Force of Will for 5 mana.
Yeah. Also, we
and with the foundries on the board, you probably keep your mana open until your opponent's end step anyway.
Yeah.
So keeping the force open is not a huge cost here.
I do exactly the play
not on this turn, but the following one.
Yeah, I want to kill the. In this spot, like, well, we can't rewind, unfortunately. What's happening is I attack with the ninja, I kill the Tarmogoyf. They do have a force, but we also have double force, and I just force back so I can attack and connect with the ninja.
But you declared attacker first before you remove a spell?
Yeah, because I'm still not I wasn't used to MTGO and just did it the wrong way.
Yeah, I'd not recommend you to do this again.
Yeah. that turn we can definitely brainstorm. Outcasts and brainstorm are really good draws. Next turn we're gonna draw the fetch. In this spot, I'm not too worried about playing the changing outcast into the daze. They might draw a red source next turn, and then they still just on 1 blue mana. And maybe have to replay the tropical island.
There is still a way for them to ride the Delver to victory, but they need to get a red source right here. And they need to have enough removal to blow up your top tiers on the following turns as well.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And we
you're
didn't
pretty
see
much still in a pretty favored spot.
Yeah, we know we have 3 cards in hand. One of them is the tropical island. And one of them is a brainstorm. They only played one of the brainstorm and revealed one of the delver. So I think it's quite unlikely that they're actually gonna play removal spell. They go for another Tarmogoyf here, which again is okay. Because yeah, we can at least stall the board state. However, Tarmogoyf also does that on their turn. So now, yeah, with the Tarmogoyf out, actually the Delver becomes more threatening. Because we are not
we
dealing
can't
damage.
get up on cards with the Infiltrator.
Yeah. But we can still at over 2 turns, so like they just pay 3 mana if it's necessary, block the Delver. Okay. Yeah, we draw the Polluted Delta we knew about. See, unfortunately, we can't, in this spot, we can't attack into the Tarmogoyf. I know the top card is another land, so I actually brainstorm first.
Yeah, Burrow is a solid tempo play here.
Yeah, and just go out there.
Also a
card.
good blocker for the Delver.
Yep, definitely.
And Narset might be able to shut the doors once we got rid of the Delver.
Yeah. Now they found the red source finally, but yeah, they just have to spend the 2 mana again to play the Tarmogoyf. Yeah, Brazen Boar, we are on 5, so that's a bit scary, but we also know about the Force of Negation, so we probably can counter one of the bolts if they have like something like double bolt over 2 turns. They are still on 14 life, which is a bit scary to actually start racing that. They do attack both creatures, which does definitely make sense, because we cannot play the Brazen Borrow and make a token. And going down to 1 is really scary as well.
So do you jump with the Infiltrator here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because going down to 1, we're just dead to 1 bolt, and if they find a second one, the force doesn't do it. If it's just force in our turn, and we do it on our turn, it's getting scary. We can't really do anything.
And we can stall the Goyf.
Yeah, as we said before, Tarmogoyf is not the worst thing. Delver is more scary. If it flips. Okay, Onifab is a really good draw. Again.
The free blocker for the Delver.
Yeah.
Assuming it flips.
Yeah.
The question is, do you play the Narset here?
I don't think so, because I want to make another... I want to block... Like, if the Delver flips, we are in a really bad spot with Narset. They just don't care about it. So I'd rather just play the Onifab, block the flip Delver, and... I did play the Narset. And we bricked very hard. So that's probably something that might lose the game in the spot.
But Delver does not flip, fortunately.
Yeah, so can just block, create a 4/4. They don't have Stifle, fortunately. And they bolt the Narset, so we don't find removal.
Oh
And
yeah,
yeah, Ethereal Forager
Forager is
probably
really
means
bad
it's
here.
game over.
There's exactly 2 cards in your deck that can remove it.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like if the Delver flips, they are still in, and the 5/6 Tarmogoyf is still in a really, really good spot. And we can't stall that for long. Even if we had found a removal for the Ethereal Forager, and they also have the Lightning Bolt underneath.
Yeah,
So
so this is certainly unexpected how we lost, how we seem to lose this game after being way ahead in the early game.
yeah, and they also draw Forked Bolt, so they just have five damage from that, and we can't do anything about that. We only have one blocker. They have Forked Bolt and Lightning Bolt, so can only counter one of them. And yeah, lost game 1. Anyway, let's go to game 2.
Yeah, let's
After
look at the
that,
sideboarding. I don't think Plague Engineer is a clear cut bring in here.
yeah, I did board out 4 of the forces. Like a Force of Negation is not the best card. Force of Will. We have a lot of answers to creatures. I brought in one of the Plague Engineers. It's still a 3-mana card.
We didn't
So
see any relevant 1 toughness creatures apart from the Delver. We didn't see Young Pyromancer. We didn't see True Name.
yeah, so
So there's no clear cut reason to bring them in, but the first Plague Engineer is still better than keeping in a Force or maybe the
yeah.
Cling to Dust as well.
Also, it's another thing that just stops Tarmogoyf from attacking and can just trade with Tarmogoyf, like a 5/6 Tarmogoyf, like they had in the match before. What did come in? Another Brazen Borrow. It, yeah, has versatility. Can be a tempo play. Can trade with a Delver.
You brought in Flusterstorm and EE, if I'm not mistaken, and Back to Basics.
No Engineered Explosive. They are still here.
Oh no,
That's
okay.
5 cards in total. Yeah, Brazen Borrow being 1. Second, Plague Engineer is number 2. Flusterstorm is number 3 because it's in that spot like the better counter spell. What we want to do is we don't want to counter their threats. We want to counter removal spells basically, or protect our removal spells. And
Yeah, 1 mana, 1-for-1 trade is pretty good against Delver. That's
yeah,
exactly the spot where you want to be in.
especially with them having bolts and red blasts and probably abrades or something like that after the game, after sideboarding, maybe even something like the one Ancient Grudge. That's really good against the deck.
Also, Back to Basics is
Yeah,
absolutely spectacular once you get it on the board.
yeah. Back to Basics is also one of these interesting cards. It's also not something you just jam on turn 3. At least I usually don't. I wait for a right spot. Like if they're tapped out of red sources, especially, and they don't have Pyroblast to get rid of it. Yeah, it can just be really good, and I usually don't play any basics at all.
Yeah, in the perfect scenario, you have a bunch of ninjas that your opponent uses, has to use his red blasts on, and then you can shut the door with Back to Basics.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I like this hand. We have 2 mana of both colors. Foundry's at least 1 payoff. Strix is good. Trades with Delver,
One
trades with
removal spell
Goyf.
is good.
Removal spell is good. Yeah, Brainstorm
Force
finds
can be
answers.
shuffled. Force can be shuffled away if
And
necessary.
yeah, we can shuffle back the Force. Or maybe if we find like a ninja, we can use it to protect it. So yeah. Turn 1 plays just...
So if I play turn 1 Foundry without any additional cards that go with it, and my opponent forces it, then I'm usually fine with it.
Yeah.
Not in every matchup, but there are some matchups where I strongly defend the Foundry with Force of Will. But Delver is not one of them.
Yeah, and that's what I wouldn't. I mean, we have the Strix to deal with their creatures and the Fatal Push. And pitching like Brainstorm to Force really just shuts down a lot of options. So, let's see. Our opponent only kept 6, so they did mulligan once. Which, this is not the kind of matchup where you want to mulligan too much. And just keep a decent hand.
Especially if Delver has a very threat-heavy hand, going to 5 cards is pretty much an auto loss because you can't draw enough removal.
Yeah. And they do have the turn 1 Delver. And also the red source, which they did not have in the start in the first match. Again, in this spot we can definitely safely fetch. Because they are tapped out.
Yeah, I'm not willing to play the Baleful Strix into potential days here. I think I fetch a basic Swarm, just push the Delver on our turn, and then pass.
I did play the Strix in this spot. Maybe just to have the day, set them back another turn, so we're on 3 mana when they are only on 1. And we have the Foundry, and then I think that the mana advantage also makes the Foundry better, which is one reason for me to do that. But yeah, it resolves, and we even draw the second Fatal Push. Just
that would have been the same spot that we were in game 1.
Yeah.
And it didn't really pan out the way that we wanted it to do.
Yeah, but yeah, double matches are usually, they always feel tight. Doesn't happen too often that you just one deck just steamrolls the other one. So they have the Delver. With the Strix out, it's maybe they can bolt or pyroblast the Strix, which is also I think a decent trade. But even if the Delver flips, also with 2 Fatal Pushes, I'm not really worried about that at all. Let's see. Moto seems to be a bit slow right now. Maybe just rush through their turn. The Delver doesn't flip, and they have a Tarmogoyf. It's only a 1/2, it only lands in the graveyard.
They do not play around days themselves either.
Yeah.
And they do not keep a removal spell open, which could be relevant in the spot if we had a ninja.
Yeah, so they are just happy pushing out threats. They haven't done anything else so far. Here we have back to basics and a third land. So in this spot, yeah, we have a lot of options again. We have the 2 Fatal Pushes for basically both of their creatures playing around counter magic with the force backup. Also have Fatal Push, Brainstorm, or just slam back to basics.
I'd really wait on the back to basics here. They could easily have a Pyroblast and another land in hand.
I do play it here.
Didn't you say you were fine playing the slower, more patient games?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like this is the case here.
Maybe it's good to just mix it up, and hopefully, it's another thing is maybe you just stall them enough so they don't get to anything. If they have a a cantrip,
also with the force backup, you are probably more comfortable going for the back to basics here.
Yeah. Also, they didn't daze anything on the turns before that. They attacked with both creatures. I'm just happy to not do anything. There's still only lands in the graveyard on turn 3. They draw a wasteland, which is the worst land they could draw, while we find another black source. So
sometimes I wonder if Delver is siding out wastelands against us.
Yeah, I think they should maybe side out 2 wastelands because it's just colorless sources and they don't have that much to do with colorless mana. And maybe
some Delver do run a pretty high curve with more 3-drops than they did in the past. So sometimes they maybe don't want to cut down on the wastelands too much, just to have them as a mana source on some occasions.
Yeah. Yeah. Here, happy just brainstorming, finding Raise and Borrow and a Changing Outcast. Changing Outcast is really good again. We still have the option to just deal with both of their threats, basically at will.
So you're paying patient from this perspective here.
Yeah. I mean, we're on 14 life, and they have a 1/1 and a 2/3. If the Delver flips, it does change, definitely. But yeah, they don't have Power Blasts right now.
I think as long as you have the Strix on the board, you don't really care about it flipping or not.
Yeah, or same about the Growing Tarmogoyf. You can just, it just can't really attack into the Strix. I mean, they tried that the turn before for 2 damage, which doesn't really matter. And so far we took 1 damage from the Delver, 2 damage from the Delver and Tarmogoyf, and 3 damage from the fetch lands.
So you're keeping the Strix to have a good ninjutsu bounce target in
Yeah,
case
that's
of
also always another thing.
Ninja?
That's always also something to think of. Like in these matches, just replaying Strix and attacking with Ninja, bouncing the Strix, drawing another card can also help grind. In this spot, I do trade the Strix because the next card is not. We know the top cards, and at least the next one is not a Ninja, and we still have Brazen Borrow, which also trades with a Flying Delver.
And there's the Ninja.
Oh, that's a Ninja. Perfect timing. We still have the Outcast, and as we said before, like in this spot, the Tarmogoyf also doesn't really matter too much. We're still safe playing the Ninja. Now push the Goyf, because now we have the Ninja in play and we don't want the Goyf to be gone. Again, like I really doubt they have Force of Negation after boarding in the deck. So playing Fatal Push on their own turn is safe.
Playing push here instead of Outcast avoids taking another hit from the Goyf.
Yeah.
Which is really recommended here, with us being already on 11 life.
Yeah.
I think if we were on like 15 or more, then I'd be more comfortable to just take another hit from the Goyf.
Yeah, what they do here is they actually daze, even though we have mana, to replay Volcanic Island. So probably they have a Red Blast to get rid of Back to Basics.
I mean, even if they use the Red Blast on Back to Basics, we get to draw another card of the Ninja. So
yeah,
it's like
definitely still a good.
They have to choose one bad thing or the other one.
Okay.
Picking your poison is the correct English term for this.
Yeah, for sure. Also, they know about the Outcast, so that is also makes it even harder to choose between Infiltrator and Back to Basics. But probably if they have a Red Blast blasting the Back to Basics is more important, because then they can have more time to deal with the threats. But then again, we're drawing twice as many cards as they do per turn. Also, Back to Basics makes days a lot better in the late game. Plus the Storm is another sweet draw. And
yeah, I don't think the opponent manages to get rid of the back to basics here.
Yeah, plus the Storm is just perfect answer for the Red Blast. And I think if I were in my opponent's spot at that point, I'm just probably fine conceding. Again, being tapped out. Okay, they do find another red source. And they go for another Goyf. So now it's paying off, I guess, that we have the Fatal Push, but we also still have the days for the Tarmogoyf, and they have 4 lands in play. And won't find any mana anytime soon. And concede there.
So who's the mana denial deck now?
Yeah, but in a different way.
I do enjoy beating Delver at at its own resource denial plan.
Yeah, and yeah, Back to Basics is definitely a nice card.
I did go down to one Back to Basics on occasion in my own sideboard, but I went back to 2 recently. It's just too good when it's good.
Yeah, definitely. And the one-off is often not enough. Because Back to Basics is really good at just eating removals. So the hand I keep here is, I think it's also pretty decent. It's more on the aggressive side with turn 1 Foundry Ornithopter. If they daze it, it's not very good. However, Strix helps at least slowing it down. And yeah, Back to Basics. Well, it did win the last one, but might also be a dead card for some time here with no cantrips. But yeah, I definitely don't want to mulligan down to 5 when I have this.
No, that's a perfectly fine keep. I would not consider taking another mulligan here as well.
Again, turn 1 Delver.
This is the 3rd time in 3 games that the opponent has a turn 1 Delver.
But we have the turn 1 Fatal Push. Or the Fatal Push is the answer. In this spot, because I have no cantrips or anything, I do want to play the Foundry around days. And not just jam it into it. Because that's like the only kind of really pressure or anything that I have in maybe also in the near future if you don't draw any cantrips or anything else. So of course this time the Delver flips immediately, and they start playing a Delver game. Not casting anything, they don't have Stifle. Yeah, start on
a risk you have to take here. Playing into Stifle.
I know. I mean, we can't always play around everything, and Stifle also is bad if we have the Foundry and play and sack the Thopter and get nothing.
Still, we paid 1 mana in total, and they did as well. So it's not too bad from the mana side.
Yeah.
It's basically a 1-for-1 trade.
Yeah. And yeah, they brainstorm in response, probably just to protect the Delver, and they do force here. I'm happy to let that resolve because we still have the Strix. Also, them brainstorming for Force of Will makes me more like committing to retrofit a Foundry in the spot.
Yeah, and in this spot, even if the opponent had another daze, I think you would have forced and to make sure that your Foundry resolves it if possible.
Yeah, just pitch Back to
Basics. Because it's pretty much the only thing that can keep you in this game at this point.
Mm-hmm. And so yeah, also if they still are able to counter it, we still have Strix next turn, and yeah, I really hope they don't have that much interaction.
Sometimes they do, but
sometimes they do, yeah.
Also, having a free blocker with the Ornithopter is pretty good here to keep our life total up.
And also in that spot, the 4/4 can maybe raise the flip Delver. And they didn't play a creature the turn before when they could have. So here, yeah, just start on attacking. They do fetch. And have Petty Theft. In this spot, I'm happy to actually force the Brazen Borrower, because also Brazen Borrower turning into a 3/1 flyer afterwards, it's still like 2 cards in one. And killing the construct for 1 and then getting the 3/1 flyer.
Yeah, this is more like a 2-for-2 trade than a 2-for-1.
Yeah, and I pitch the Ninja in this spot because I think I might need the Strix against the Delver.
And you don't have another enable for the Ninja anyway. Yeah.
There's an argument to just pitching Back to Basics as well. But I think if I draw the 3rd land, Back to Basics maybe gives me more of an access to play against them than the Ninja does in that spot.
Yeah, and especially considering that we have already made our opponent run out of quite a few cards. He has only 2 cards left in hand, so the chances of Back to Basics having a high impact here are pretty high.
Yeah. What they do here is they bolt the Strix, which is also fine. In that spot, they're on a 5-turn clock, we're on a 4-turn clock. So we can still raise them just with the construct, and over 2 turns also create 1 blocker at least, if nothing else changes. And we also have the ponder to find something else, which is another Strix. I do ponder in that spot, trying to find another land just to develop the board towards back to basics. Unfortunately, the Verdant Catacombs in this spot means I need the Underground Sea to actually cast the Strix. But still, I'm fine with having 2 lands over no lands and just keeping up the race.
Yeah. Perfect draw here. Once again.
They do have a Red Blast and still try to go for the race. But keep on digging. And that's one thing that Delver decks often struggle with. If you get rid of the Tarmogoyfs, or if they don't find a Tarmogoyf, for example, they don't have many answers to a 4/4, because Bolt just doesn't kill it. And yeah, we do have Brazen Borrows, but yeah, Bolt doesn't kill it. Find another Ninja, which is not the best card in this spot.
Do you bounce a Delver here? I think so, yeah.
Just going for back to basics.
Play back to basics.
And yeah, at that point they are on 4 life, so we need 1 card to either deal 8 damage, or like they have 1 shot at 1 mana basically, to either deal with the 4/4 construct, or I don't know, find some miraculous way to kill us with the Delver.
There's still a way if they have
Fire Blast.
two bolts in hand, and they draw another red source.
Yeah, but that's
then they can kill you.
I really find it very unlikely, actually.
It's very unlikely, yes, but I think the safer choice would be just bouncing the Delver, resetting it, and keeping your clock up.
Yeah. Well, anyway, this is how it turned out. They didn't have the answer and conceded in that spot. Okay, so we're getting towards the last one in the league.
You've told me your matchups before, but I really can't remember the 5th deck that you played against.
Yeah, I mean,
so let's see what your opponent is playing here.
Definitely. Again, we're on the draw here. That's a starting hand, and I really like this. There's a Foundry, it has a Ninja. The Strix is good with the Ninjas. It has interaction for a creature, but also, like, if it's a combo deck, I'm happy to pitch the Strix to Force of Will.
Yeah, that's all around pretty versatile hand that can fight most, if not any, strategy, at least on the first few turns.
Yeah.
Of course, you can draw 3 or 4 lands in a row after this, but
yeah. And we're playing against Maverick. Savannah Hexdrinker is pretty obvious. So this, I think, makes this hand even better. Foundry is really strong against Maverick. Fatal Push is good against Hexdrinker. They can't level it up to 3 next turn, so I'm happy to just play the Foundry. And also we'll just go on 3. The Strix can still trade with it. We found another Ninja. And so basically in this place, Yuriko is the card to pitch to Force of Will if they have like a Green Suns for 2, which might mean Collector Oof if they have that. I think it's unlikely they have it in the main board, but they still might. Or like, just to counter Green Suns Zenith.
If you have to use the Force, you probably pitch the Yuriko here.
Yeah.
Because they could also have Caracas.
Yeah, they usually have Caracas, and also, again, in this spot, Ingenious Infiltrator having 2 power makes it better in a lot of spots than the 1 power Yuriko. So yeah, play the Foundry. Also incentivize them kind of to invest mana into the Hexdrinker if they don't have anything better to do. Yeah, attack for 2, fetch, and go for Thalia. In this spot, I'm happy forcing the Thalia.
But why did you pitch the Infiltrator?
I don't know.
we just talked about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm happy to force a Thalia because it keeps up our pace, I think. and we don't need 2 ninjas in the spot, and there's not that many, like, especially with Thalia in play, it's way harder to do anything with Force of Will.
Yes, I agree.
We draw the Changing Outcast, which is really nice. Right, I pass a turn because I want to keep up Fatal Push from the Hex Drinker if they go to 3 mana. I think their incentive is probably to just, especially with us forcing Thalia, they might think we don't have a removal spell, and just try to bring the Hex Drinker up to 3 and then push it in response, so they wasted a whole turn. But they don't.
You just block it now?
I just make a 1/1, and they do swords it, but I'm totally fine with them using Swords to Plowshares on a servo to protect the Hex Drinker. Maybe they forgot about that as well, and they probably play the Collector Oof post combat. So they do have the main deck Collector Oof, which makes the game definitely more interesting.
I think most of the Maverick decks have a main deck Collector Oof. I think it's one of the stronger one of toolbox cards that you can have in a Maverick deck.
Yeah.
Because it's really good against the Test Storm deck with the Wish Claw and fast artifact mana. It's really solid against
Other Echoes.
the Urza Echo of Eons combo deck.
Yeah.
And of course it's relevant against Foundry.
Again, this spot I'm happy to just pass because we still have the Hex Drinker, and I have to use a Fatal Push on the Hex Drinker, otherwise it might just lose the game to that. They just can keep it back, make it 6/6 protection from everything, the little progenitors, and then win the game with that. And we have no way to deal with it. And they have to invest the mana before they can actually attack with the Hex Drinker as well. And yeah, they start leveling up the Hex Drinker to 3. In response, Fatal Push it. I can still attack for 2, which doesn't matter too much. And yeah, Strix is also, I think, I'm happy, like next turn we want to use ninjutsu, so I'm really happy just playing the Strix over the Outcast. It's basically also a blockable creature, it keeps back Collector Oof, and yeah, we can redeploy it and use the mana and draw another card with it.
Yeah, having another ninja to pitch here to make sure we're getting at least one ninja in next turn is also great assurance here.
Yeah, and Ornithopter is also a sweet draw. We still have the Dead Foundry, but the ninjas probably help us to find an answer to the Collector Oof.
Yeah, I agree. Collector Oof is not here to stay for long.
Yeah, and here we are again in the spot why I should have pitched Yuriko instead of Ingenious Infiltrator, because Collector Oof is a 2/2. Also, like in this spot, if they use Swords to Plowshares on one of the creatures, I'm fine with that.
So if you have the choice now, you return a Baleful Strix for ninjutsu to get an extra draw?
Yeah, probably. And just, I mean, the game is like, it's playing out right now. It's going long. There's not like an immediate big threat in play. And so yeah, just trying to aim for a long game. I'm happy just using the Strix to grind card advantage. Tap for 3 for a Green Suns for 2. Green Suns is one of the good.
So what do you think they might have searched for here? Galactique?
They maybe have Galactique, which can be annoying. It also shuts down their Green Suns, but yeah. Also shuts down Murderous Cut and Force of Will. And the other thing is, like, even the Scavenging Ooze can just outgrow constructs over time and help them grind by gaining life as well and just staying back as a big blocker.
I'm not sure if I would have used the Force of Will here. 2-mana creature. I mean, they could have gotten Scrib Ranger to get a free block on the Baleful Strix.
Yeah, right, that's also true. Or like an attack in.
That would be annoying, yeah.
I've
been reading a quote about Scrib Ranger on some Discord server where somebody said Scrib Ranger is the card that your opponent doesn't doesn't care about in game 1 and proceeds to lose to it,
Yeah.
and then immediately throws a Force of Will it in the game 2.
Yeah.
I've had this happen to me as well, so
Yeah, me too.
I'm I'm in the fraction of just kill Scrib Ranger on sight and
Yeah, so if they have another fetch land
move on.
if they have another fetch land and find Dryad Arbor, they can blank one flyer and one creature on the ground, which can be really tough to beat.
I mean, the Changeling cannot be dealt with in any way.
Yeah,
But
but they might still
they
have
might
removal
also
or
play
find removal.
this Black Splash for Plague Engineer,
Yeah, so it's also like something
which
that,
makes Changeling really bad with the Foundry dead on board.
yeah. I mean, it's also like they want to play it, obviously not showing what color they splash for in the first one. And or just being straight green white. However, when I see like two Savannas in Horizon Canopy, I feel like they might rather be a black splash than a red splash, because if they splash for punishing fire, they need more. They have global burn wallows and are more likely to just naturally draw into a red source, I think.
But if the opponent is familiar with ninjas, I think he would just easily fetch out his black sources.
Yeah.
Because we don't have any mana disruption in game 1 anyway, so there's no downside to going for Bayou or Scrubland.
Yeah.
The interesting thing is you're leaving the Baleful Streaks back to block here.
Yeah, again.
Again, we're talking about some potential plays here, and then you proceed to play differently in your league
Yeah.
than what
Obviously,
we agree on.
it's interesting. Yeah, let's see. Maybe
Yeah, but
it's just having a blocker for Collector Oof and having the 1/1, and that like having two bigger creatures than Collector Oof is still like the one unblockable one, and be infiltrated and can attack through the Collector Oof is still a good spot to be in, and the Ponder to find like an emergency card maybe. And again, they green sense for 2, and they do find Script Ranger. So apparently Script Ranger is really important for them.
I called it.
Yeah. It also means they can just block Ingenious Infiltrator indefinitely, and they also have a certain library to help them grind and even out on that axis.
Oh,
But yeah,
Fatal Push is a great draw here,
draw.
which swings the game really hard in your own favor.
Yeah, I think in this spot I'm just happy to Fatal Push Collector Oof, turn the Foundry back on, and having colorless creatures against the Script Ranger also makes it better.
Yeah, if the opponent found the Sylvan Library a couple of turns earlier, I think you would have been in a lot of trouble.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
in this spot, I think you're too far ahead to for the Sylvan Library to make a big difference here.
yeah, I mean, I did have a forest before that I used on the Green Suns. Okay, they did have 4 mana as well, so yeah, they must have decided between Sylvan Library and Green Suns before. But yeah, they have no cards in hand. We are getting more pressure on the board. To use Dryad Arbor with Script Ranger, we first need to find a fetch land. On the other hand, like a fetch land is like medium thing to draw, or like to keep with the Sylvan Library. And yeah, we're just drawing more cards in this spot.
I'd really get to see more cards out of the deck. They've just used one fetch land, I think, on the first turn.
Yeah, one went so deep.
So they might still have a splash color, probably black, if any. But
Yeah.
they didn't have a lot of options to search for black lands, so it's not entirely clear at this point.
Yeah. I did attack here with the Ingenious Infiltrator, even though I can just block it with Script Ranger in the, I don't know, maybe faint hope they do block with a Collector Oof. And even if they double block, I just push the Oof anyway. And like this, we still have the surprise mount, and we get another ninja, which is sweet. And yeah, also the second foundry also really helps grinding against that. If the game goes much longer. They do use the library to keep one extra card. They do get the fetch as well.
And
However,
they
yeah,
do have the
here
Black
they
Splash, yeah.
fetch the Bayou. And the other card they found is Plague Engineer. In response to that, because I want to use the foundries on the Changing Outcast now, obviously, I do push the Collector Oof in response, so I have 2 potential 4/4s and just pressure them like that. So they have to block with the Plague Engineer next turn. And get rid of it that way. And yeah, just make another 4/4 and put lethal damage on the board so they have to block our creatures. And I can still wait with Ninja and do that next turn. They do trade with Plague Engineer, but they keep Script Ranger back, however. And also being on 5 life and behind on the board makes it really hard. They Ramon up Excavator, but
It's not doing all that much here.
it's a 2/3. It's a body. But end of turn we can just make another 1/1 flyer. And most importantly, it's colorless, so Script Ranger can only trade with it. And yeah, we're just way ahead in the spot. Attack with all of them. They have to block the 4/4 and the Ninja, and then
you get to draw another 2 cards.
Yeah. And it's one of them is Force of Will on this Fatal Push, so no matter what they are gonna do next turn, they are basically dead.
They need to draw the uncounterable board wipe here.
Yeah.
In upstone colors.
Yeah, end of turn push and game 1 is done with.
I think Maverick in general is also a really favorable matchup.
Yeah,
because they can have trouble beating multiple foundries, as we just saw. They also can have trouble dealing with turn 2, turn 3 ninjas with counterspell backup. And of course they have their own haymakers as well, but they are usually on the slower side. So if we have an explosive hand, it's pretty easy to out-tempo them.
Yeah. On the other hand, yeah, it always, like we said before, it depends a lot on your starting hand. You can also just keep a very slow hand, try to prevent them from doing important things, like on turn 2 and 3, like if they have a Noble Hierarch on turn 1, counter the knight or kill the knight on turn 2, for example, and maybe kill whatever they play on the next turn as well, or counter it, and then start deploying, or like committing to the board, and this can still be a good way to win that. Okay.
So you did cut a bunch of counter spells.
Yeah, 2 Force of Negations with Daze is not great, I think, against Maverick, especially not on the draw. If they go turn 1 Noble, they can often just be ahead.
It's really bad in the late game too.
And I also, like, on the draw, I don't want a Daze on turn 1. Like, I don't want a Daze a Relic, another Reliquary that they play on turn 2. And just have them on 4 mana while I'm on 1 or something like that. Yeah, Force of Negation, we have other ways to interact with. Also cut one Force of Will. I did keep in 3 of them, because we do have stuff that we need to be wary of. Like they have chokes post-board that are hard to deal with.
Also, you don't want them to have a 7 library.
Yeah, also I don't, especially not an early 7 library. I wanna try to counter that, and we don't have many ways to interact with enchantments. I also
from this perspective, yeah, go on.
I also took out one of the Yurikos because they probably also have Karakas, and with the Knights they also have ways to find it. And one of the Changing Outcasts because they showed me the main deck Plague Engineer, so there's going to be more afterwards.
Yeah, from the perspective of them having choke and Sylvan Library, I do like the Brazen Burrow here. I think I would have brought in the second Brazen Burrow, with also a beater in the air.
Yeah.
But also, on the other hand, it's not great against Group Ranger.
Yeah, it's like
so staying on one Burrow is probably a fine choice.
Yeah, two more cards that came out are Cling to Dust and Narset. I mean, Narset is exactly good if they have Sylvan Library. Otherwise, it doesn't do anything. I mean, Cling to Dust sometimes enables some fancy things when they attack with a Knight of the Reliquary. I think it's big enough, and you cling one of the lands. But yeah, that's not necessarily what we're really into. Also, like Ramunap Excavator, we're not worried about Wasteland Lock, and if they spend their land drop on Horizon Canopy, I think that's not worth bringing in Cling to Dust, or like keeping in the Cling to Dust. So the cards to bring in are, Liliana is generally good against creature decks. 2 Plague Engineers that can kill a bunch of this small stuff, like Thalias. Maybe Thalias are coming out on their end anyway, but it's also a Death Toucher that can that can trade with the Knight of the Reliquary. Massacre, they play planes. They play a bunch of small creatures. Kills their Plague Engineer. Engineered Explosives is another one of these cards that can deal with 2-drops if they have important ones like Collector Oof, for example. It can't deal with Collector Oof, obviously, but but with some of the 2-drops, or also with a 6/6 or like Grona Pex Drinker, for example.
Yeah, it can remove a Sylvan Library, Script Ranger.
Yeah.
So maybe a Stoneforge Mystic or a GT.
Yeah, if they
depending on what the exact list is.
Yeah, and also
Back to Basics is really spectacular here.
Yeah.
Especially because they have a splash color. If they were straight green white, they might play a bit more on the basic heavy side. But with 3 colors, they are on a pretty greedy mana base. So Back to Basics can be really effective.
Yeah, so like their way to remove Back to Basics is Abrupt Decay, and they might just not have, probably don't have a Swamp in the deck. A Noble Hierarch also doesn't, like, they showed the Noble Hierarchs, so that one also doesn't tap for black.
And taking black mana away is pretty good, because the opponent has no way to cast Plague Engineer then, and Abrupt Decay is a dead card in this case.
Yeah. And generally it's like, sometimes it's like, okay, they have choke, counter the choke, next turn resolve Back to Basics, win the game. I had a few of these. Yep, so that's basically the sideboard for this one. So let's jump into it. That's the first starting hand. It's okay.
Yeah, we have the land drops guaranteed. We have a potential on turn to Ninja. We have potential. We have the option to dig for more answers with the Brainstorm. So another solid all-around hand.
And Back to Basics basically being another threat. And yeah, again here we also have the difference between another difference between Yuriko and Ingenious Infiltrator. They do have the Black Splash, so they have Abrupt Decay, and Ingenious Infiltrator doesn't die to Abrupt Decay. So opponent keeps on 6. Starts off on a turn 1 Noble. Fatal Push is a good draw, but I think in this spot I'm just waiting. Sometimes it's just like Bolt the Bird. I think against Maverick the Haymakers are like really making a lot of hay. So I feel like I rather keep the Fatal Push for these creatures, actually.
I think I disagree in this spot, because you open up yourself to Sylvan Library and also to choke already, even if you
Yeah.
don't have an island, but you don't have a Force of Will.
Mm-hmm.
You give the opponent 3 mana, and also leaving the noble on board makes back to basics a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I think I would have played a Fatal Push here.
Okay, so
But let's see how it turns
yeah.
out.
They have the Bayou. They do have Abrupt Decay for the Changing Outcast, which in this spot I'm fine with. We're still on the slow side, but they don't have a 3-drop apparently, and they're really afraid of a ninja, and probably wanna also use exactly that logic. Like if we have Ingenious Infiltrator, then the Abrupt Decay doesn't do much against it, and it's just a dead card, so
Yeah.
I just kill the Enabler in this spot, and they don't have swords apparently. Otherwise, they probably would have just kept back, or like just kept one wide open for the swords. And so they just get in for 1. And Foundry is another good draw.
I think this turn you play the end of turn Fatal Push.
Yeah.
Into back to basics.
I can't really because I used the black mana for that.
You could have gotten another basic swamp.
Yeah.
You had a basic island in hand already.
Yeah. Okay, but now it's back to basics time. They still have 2 mana, which can also be like Abrupt Decay on back to basics, but then again, it's also not too bad. They keep two more cards in the spot, and which is really interesting. Now we know they're not on Stoneforge Mystic, but on Mother of Runes. And okay, so
let's get a Plague Engineer.
Let's get Plague Engineer, which is not on top.
Oh.
But yeah, Ornithopter is another good one. And here, actually, I'm just bolting the Mom because yeah, it just might lead to more trouble, and we don't have the Plague Engineer. And they still like many like the Green Suns for Collector U, for example, is 3 mana. They have a lot of stuff that costs 3. They did keep 2 cards, which also can mean that we are just digging for stuff still. And we still have double force, like pitch force. Don't keep anything, like any additional cards. And apparently I'm just happy passing.
Seems like they missed to fetch their land in their own turn. Before the Sylvan Library to see some fresh cards, they did not make a land drop.
They took
which is not the place they want to be in.
They took all 3 cards on the turn before. They paid 8 for the library on the turn before that. So
oh yeah, they didn't know any cards on top.
Yeah. Yeah, and end of turn we can just make a 1/1 servo and just have that one for free. You get another island, and yeah, attack with both of them with the block with the noble. That's fine. And yeah, let's just get in the infiltrator. Draw an extra card. I mean, here it helps that they just probably they didn't find another land drop as well in the top 3 cards.
Yeah, and they probably do not have Swords of Flourishes in hand. I think they would have casted it without any longer thought.
Yeah, so maybe it just had like an answer to back, or no, I don't think they have an answer to back to basics because Abrupt Decay is something they could have cast off of the mana and should have.
To me, it looks like they have a lot of clunky cards in hand, like maybe 2 Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah.
And Green Sun Seen It or Questing Beast or whatever.
Yeah, and just hope to find lands with the Sylvan Library.
It's possible they do have a choke, but not enough mana for it.
Yeah.
But we don't care about choke at this point anyway.
Yeah.
We just have too much pressure on the board.
Yeah, I think so too. Also, if they can't answer back to basics, choke is also really bad for them. And also now we have 3 Force of Wills in hand. The top card is another Ponder. So I didn't take the Ponder because I think I just want to convert a server into another 1/1 flyer. So eventually get to the 4/4 and increase the pressure. Yeah, now they do fetch end of turn. And they do have the Abrupt Decay to untap with all the mana.
That's fair.
At least they can't really take any more cards with the Sylvan Library, and we still have the forces and exactly for the choke.
Do you care about the choke here?
I think I do. I mean, it's still like they spent their whole turn on the choke, so they didn't commit any creatures to the board, like a knight that can block anything. And
I think I would have left the choke resolve. Just make a 4/4 on it, 4/4 construct out of the Ornithopter, and then go to town and just counter their spells that affect the board at this point.
yeah, might be a reasonable choice as well. I think in that spot I draw the Ponder, so I have another force up next turn. So I just feel like if I just counter, like they can't really put too many things on the board, and just attack again with everything. They're back on 3 mana. Then they didn't find lands with the Sylvan Library. They do have a Swords on the Ninja, which I'm okay with. They jump the Construct to stay on 7. But with Force I feel okay. They have another one, another Swords. Now they're finding all of them. 4 mana is basically turn this into another 4/4. So that's why I was kind of okay with them using Swords to Plowshares there and not using the force on anything that commits to the board on their side. But they have another Abrupt Decay to deal with even more stuff. So now they do have all the removal spells in the world. So now it's good to have the Ponder again. Strix is another good draw because it
draws right in the foundry.
Right into the foundry again. We have Strix and
opponent having a déjà vu at this point.
Yeah. And they've already used 3 Abrupt Decays, so I don't think they play the full 4 actually.
There shouldn't be any left in the deck, yeah.
Yeah, and the Knight also is only, if they fetch, it's still a 4/4, but they basically have to block. Otherwise it's just dead on the turn after. Again, Ponder is a good draw. Finds a Brainstorm. Brainstorm looks 1 card deeper. And
we can bounce the Force Strix, yeah.
No, I put the Force of Will on top with Brainstorm.
Oh,
so
okay.
The Strix
They have the Dried Arbor.
Anyway, they have a Dried Arbor from Fetch. Yeah, to double block the construct just in case. But yeah, Yuriko is lethal with the Force on top. Oh, it's not Force of Will.
I think you put it in the first spot, right?
I think so too, but yeah.
And now you fetched it away, okay.
Yeah. But yeah, also just the Knight dying to the construct. They have another one, but they still, I think, quite a bit behind, especially if we have a second foundry. It's going to be really tough anyway. And we're still on 20 life, so we have time on
they can't block the Baleful Strix at all. You get another Yuriko trigger and they go to 1. Oh no, they might activate. No, the Knight does is still summoning 6, so he can't get Caracas and bounce the Yuriko to get rid of the trigger.
Yeah.
I'm curious why you were hardcasting the Ninja here.
I don't know either.
it's pretty funny that there are quite a few misplays in your league and you still made 5-0.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just
and
attacking with Strix.
This makes the deck look a lot more busted than it actually is. Because it looks like you can play this deck in a suboptimal way and make a bunch of mistakes here and there and still get a 5-0. It's not that easy. You didn't face all that many really bad matchups with the deck.
Yeah, sure.
That certainly helps, but it has a lot of game against most of the decks. So there's that.
Also in that spot, they look at the top 3 cards of the library and then concede. So that they can only block one of them.
3 lands on top?
I don't know, probably. and I don't know what they had, but I mean, also with another foundry in play, we're still in a good spot anyway. Okay, so that's it. Going back to the list, I did change a few things afterwards. Like I removed the main deck Narset. I think I went.
Did you remove it from the 75, or did you move it to the sideboard?
I did move it to the sideboard. I was trying out back to basics in the main deck actually, like you did a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't really played many games with it yet. Like 5
I
maybe.
think one main deck might be a really good silver bullet in some metas.
Yeah.
And
As
having a
always.
one-off in the main deck that's a blue card isn't really bad, because you can pitch it to force, you can brainstorm it away without a big risk of redrawing it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's an interesting card to try out in the main deck. As we saw today in the league, it has quite a high impact in the matchup where it's good.
Yeah.
And it has a low opportunity cost.
Yeah, definitely. What I did change, what I like quite a lot. I mean, actually, here I'm on Murderous Cut and 3 fatal pushes already for more creature-based matchups. I did put. I think I removed the Murderous Cut because there was like hardly any situations where it was relevant, and fatal push usually would have been the better one. Like in all the instances, I think when we had it, and put another fatal push in the sideboard. And I also removed the Massacre, as you said. Also the Brazen Borrower, but yeah, I mean there's a few flex slots in the deck, and yeah, I think there's no like definite choice on what the best 60 or the best 61 actually is. It's just changing a lot, and it
I
depends
agree.
on.
There's a few spots here and there that you can mix up. If you have a control heavy meta, Narset is pretty good in the main deck. If you have a shells heavy meta, maybe a second Brazen Borrower might be fine to bounce shallows and play your one mana spells in the following turn.
Yeah.
And loading up on removal spells if you play against a lot of Delver and Elves and stuff is also fine. I did also try out a single main deck Plague Engineer recently, which wasn't really good, but I think this is one of the better decks to play it in the main deck in, because once you put it on the board, you can name a creature type and maybe kill a bunch of creatures with it, and there's always the option to bounce it back to your hand with the ninjas, so you can replay the Plague Engineer and name a different creature type. But it's a very mana intensive play, so it's it might be good in some spots, but it's probably a fringe scenario.
Yeah, I think so too. It's the same with Brazen Borrower. Like on the surface, it looks like, oh yeah, I can just buy back Brazen Borrowers, but the amount of times it actually happens and comes to that are very, very few.
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah, I think we can wrap it up here. And thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. Eternally surprised. I'd really enjoy doing this in the future again, and maybe we can go over a non-5-0 league in the future, so we can get a better look at what the weaknesses of the deck are, so that people interested in playing and seeing content for this aren't just seeing the perfect case scenarios, but also some fail cases.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's also always an interesting thing, like what you lose to with the deck, and how that looks. So you get a grasp of how, like, what are the scenarios you want to avoid. What are maybe like different ways that you could have taken. And I mean, we had a bunch of these. Like, I definitely didn't play that perfectly. And yeah, it's always
but we didn't have all that many negative scenarios and a lot of good top decks.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Thanks for doing this, and I'd be happy to join you in the future once again. Have a
Yeah.
good night.
Have a good night.